Hi learners, we are in the new product development module, and in the previous lesson we had become product designers and understood or tried to understand, or I tried my best to explain how designers take an idea which is abstract and convert it into something tangible and real, which is a prototype. A prototype has both functionality and form, which is desirability. So it makes it's almost like a product where you can see how it will perform, what it will do, and how it will look. So as an end user or as a customer, we can give inputs, we can try the product, see its performance, look at its form. All this time, of course, as users, we understand that this is a prototype and the final product will look better or the final product will perform better, but it's a great enough way for designers to get feedback and inputs on the prototype and get to understand which are the important attributes to a user and how their prototype is performing as far as those attributes are concerned. In this lesson, we will move to the famous 3 alphabets called MVP. MVP in sports means the most valuable player. It's a word that is used in a lot of sports across the world. Who is the MVP? And of course, in cricket, we all know who was the MVP. I don't know who is the MVP today, but I know one, and he's scored. But in our context as entrepreneurs, as founders, an MVP stands for a minimum viable product, and it's something that is going to the customer, is going to be used by the customer, and going to be paid for by the customer. And therefore, it is very, very important milestone in the startup's journey. So I thought it was important for us to take a whole lesson detailing the minimum viable product. So the starting point for a minimum viable product was this prototype that our designers created. In the minimum viable product, we are no longer asking questions only about functionality, performance and desirability, but bringing in this key dimension of price and bringing in this dimension of will you buy it. So far we have only been asking how good is it in its performance, does it perform well, does it look good, is it something that you could be interested in. But now in the MVP phase, we are starting to ask questions which are harder, which are more business than just product design, which is about will a customer want to buy this product, or at what price would a customer want to buy this product. This typically, this phase, the MVP phase, the building the minimum viable product phase can take months, and it is done both in a lab and in a business environment. And I did mention to you that the coming together of the lab facilities and the business facilities could mean mentor, could mean money, grants, could mean access to investors, could mean access to first customers and so on, are available to all of you, are available to all of us through incubators that are there across the country. The Government of India has a fabulous program, and we will cover that in a future session, in one of our finance sessions, which is how can you get into an incubator, what all other support that an incubator gives you. But in an MVP context, what an incubator helps you with is gives you the environment to develop customers, to figure your first customer, to build your product for your first customer, and to ensure that trial and purchase happen as far as one customer is concerned. If it is a business to business, one customer is enough. If it is business to consumer, one is not enough. You will need a minimum sample which says around 50 or so. The ending point of the MVP stage is that one customer has got you in a B2B environment, and maybe 50 customers have paid money and are trying your product or are using your product. So, both the technical dimension as well as the business dimension, the MVP is said to be ticked, as in this milestone has been achieved when there is a customer trial or purchase that has happened. I read this to you the last time, so I am just going to stay with my colleagues, which is Professor Milind. He says it is the jugaad version, it is the most crappy version of the product that your customer can use, and the customer will put down money to buy, to pay. This has defined as a product with enough features to attract early adopter customers. In our customer discovery, we had spoken of early evangelists, which is someone who knows they have a problem, they know they have a problem, they are looking for a solution. Some of them have been putting things together to see if they can make a solution. This customer, this kind of early evangelist is likely to buy your product because has been in the market and has been looking for it. So, this is the person to design your MVP for. And why should we do a minimum viable product at all? Why should anything be minimum? Why shouldn't it be maximum? For everything though we say we should get maximum marks. In fact, our parents are the kind who say, when you don't get 100 out of 100, you say, why did you lose those 3 marks or whatever. In our worlds, we are always talking of maximum, but no, as a startup founder, resources are not maximum, and time is definitely not a maximum. So, you can't keep doing iterations and iterations, some competitor will beat you to the market. So, it is best to go to the market when you have the minimum features that are enough for a customer to buy your product. That is the minimum viable product. The product will never be perfect. If you put out an MVP into the market, it is the best way of getting feedback. It comes not from hypothetical users, meaning it is मैं आपको दूँ product और बोलूँ कि आप try करके मुझे feedback दीजिए, but you have not put your money down to buy. So, you will give me some feedback, a lot of it might be true, but the penny has not dropped. It is not pinching you, it is not something that you put money for, and you are not putting it to use in a real situation, and therefore, feedback on a prototype is slightly lower order than feedback on an MVP. In an MVP, the customer is trying in their real situation, and the customer has paid or has promised to pay. So, there is money also involved. So, here you get the best, most real feedback or input from your customer or end user. If you do an MVP, you can do an iteration. You figure out that I created this, but it could be better on this dimension, no problem. The next product we will be better on that dimension. This is the next line that is used, is something the software industry uses all the time, which is that bugs can be ironed out. Bugs is some problem with your software, and so you will change the code, that problem with your software will go, you will add some features and you will remove all the bugs. That is what happens in a MVP. You will get all your data and your facts before you build a full-edged product, and you will maximize your learnings before you start investing serious money behind your product. And by serious money, we mean not just money in terms of developing the product, but you will start advertising the product. You will build a sales team to go out and sell the product. Those are also investments. Investments are not just into building the product, those are investments too. And so, an MVP is extremely critical for a startup. No startup ever has the money or the time to keep waiting for iterations and building the final product. ऐसा तो that luxury no startup founder has. The best feedback comes from real customers in real use cases when they have put in real money to buy or committed to buy, and therefore an MVP is so critical for a startup to do. What are possible MVPs? So, there can be a simple MVP which has one landing page in a website instead of all the linked pages and those, it comes here and then goes somewhere else and all that. An MVP for can just be one landing page, or it can be an app with only one feature. And here I'll take a minute and tell you the story of the Uber MVP, Uber, which is the shared car. Apparently, the story goes like this, which is that the founder of Uber, to book a ride, one had to send an email to the founder. He tried this, the MVP was tried with perhaps some 10 friends or something, and they were all people who wanted the ride service. He wanted drivers, and he managed to find, I think, 3 cars who were willing to do this, and they not just willing to do this as an experiment, but they were willing to do this for money, because the Uber driver earns money out of driving the car, right? So, so there are 3 or 4 cars. Those are the drivers. There are 10 riders who are all friends of the founder. What does the app have? The app only has the current location of the car, of the 4 cars. That's all that shows on the app. If we need to, if the 10 people, any of the 10 people want to get a ride, they send an email to the founder. This is the MVP of Uber. It was tested in one of the large cities in the United States, and they say the rest is history. At the first time, the co-founder could only get 3 or 4 drivers to do this. He got 10 people signed up to ask for a ride, and within a few weeks or maybe a month, it was clear that this was a much needed service and that it could be done by having an app that connects riders to drivers. And of course, we all use the app today, we all use the service today. So, we know how the feature or the features of that product, it is a digital product, but the features of that digital product have no longer this only one thing that we can see, which is where the car is. There is so much more that there is happening on the app, but the MVP had just that one feature. So, you can build an MVP with just one feature, which is in your app. This is a clever thing, the third one, which is you can build an AI solution, but to build an AI solution, you need tons of data, you need to be running that, you need to have written your code to be running that, and sometimes you do not have that possible. So, there are cases we have heard where instead of this trained LLM models, there are actually human beings doing the back end, and that is a possible MVP. You have a customer putting out a query. For example, it could be a customer asking a query to what they think is a chatbot, but actually it is a human being responding as if were a chatbot, but not responding from their own idea, but from a list of prompts or statements that are available, which is like a loop saying if this is the question, this is the answer. Instead of fully designing for the chatbot, we are testing whether by having these statements in front of the human being and finding the right answer, it is possible to satisfy a customer. So, that is an MVP. In my world which I come from, which is FMCG or a physical product world, very difficult to do a MVP because products have to be made in batches. There is no concept of making one product. They have to be, I mean, if we are baking cookies, you have to bake them in large quantities. Yeah. So, what we could do in our kind of industry, and I was thinking and racking my brains about what is a MVP in the context of a FMCG business, and for me the answer was a test market, where you create for one market. The manufacturing is by and large done, but it is a small size, you are not making it of national scale. You are not spending advertising money to reach nationally or even to reach one region or one state. You take one city and you advertise only in that city. To that extent, your resources are consumed less, but the feedback that you get is quality feedback, because it reaches the customers in that city who are real, and you can get feedback from that. Feedback in FMCG does not mean that somebody will call you and tell you how much they loved your product. We wish that happened, it does not happen. The feedback that a fast moving consumer product gets is repurchase. So, you bought XYZ cracker, as we have been calling it. I bought XYZ cracker and I went again and bought it. And the retailer is able to say ki haan, people who bought it once are buying it again, which means the product is working, which means you should spend more money, get more people to try it, because once they try it, they are coming back for more. So, what is a minimum viable product? It is a product which could be one landing page, an app with one feature. If it is an AI tool, the AI tool is at the front end, but at the back end, instead of the data and the LLM which has already been created, there is actually human beings who are doing the work of a chatbot or some other. And in the case of physical products, instead of spending money nationally or internationally or even at a large state kind of level, we are saying we will spend our money in a more limited manner, get feedback from real customers, change our product as needed, and then go back with a better product than MVP. It is always understood, the startup founder understands that MVP is not the best product, it is the most optimum product. In a period of time with a set of features, this is what we can build. So, that is what MVPs are, and if you have an idea, do think about how do you demonstrate POC. Very often for most ideas you can demonstrate proof of concept by research itself. Piezoelectric, there is enough research to know that with this kind of steps, with this kind of kinetic energy, this much of electrical impulse can be generated and so on. What will a prototype look like, and for your idea, what does the MVP look like? So, I leave that with you to think about. If you have an idea that you are working with, do think about this. What is the approach? The approach to an MVP is that the core, the key product values have to be incorporated as features. So, for a cookie, it should have flour and fat and sugar and fiber and flavor and whatever other base ingredients. The base ingredients of a chatbot are an ability at the front end for a customer to ask a question, and the back end can be anything, because the chatbot, the customer sees, I typed a question, my life insurance policy is valid till what date? Somebody at the back end types it into the portal, figures out the date and types it back. So, the back end is not needed in MVP, but the front end is needed as far as MVP is concerned. It is a core product value. Build the most minimum set of features that your customer will say, okay, I can try with just this set of features, this is good enough to try, it is good enough to say that I will buy if it works. So, that is a customer trial or purchase. You build only what is required and you keep building improvements quickly and with the least cost. All of us are consumers of iterative MVP. It sounds very strange, the expression, but think of your phone and think of your laptop and see how often you get updates on your phone. That is just, you bought an MVP, they continue to update your phone. As they develop new technology, you are in touch with new technology, and then they say, okay, now you have to buy the next version of phone, because your phone I can't update any more technology on, because the base technology that it had cannot support so much of data loading or so on and so forth. All of us have experienced software updates on our phone, on our streaming service. My television is telling me to update it now. I am given to understand, I have read definitely that cars in the world today are not just hardware, cars are hardware and software. So, the most new electric vehicles are the ones where over the air a software update can be carried out, much like you and I do software updates on our phones. And not only is it for some nice to have feature, but those updates can be about basic features like safety, security, fuel gauge and things like that too. So, products increasingly are becoming digital in nature. They are hardware, there is a physical product, but the physical product has a topping of a software layer or an app layer, and that is a dynamic product and can be modified all the time and over the air. So, releasing improvements quickly and with least cost, that is why an MVP is so important. This is a like we had the pyramid for and we called it, we referred to it as the Maslow's pyramid for customer needs and wants. In this case, this is the pyramid of needs as far as a minimum viable product is concerned. The base requirement is functionality. The product has to do what it said it has to do, right? It has to click. When I click, the next slide has to happen. So, functionality, my phone has to allow me to talk, my phone has to allow me to surf the internet, because I bought a smartphone, I did not buy a feature phone or a button phone or whatever it might be called. So, I bought a smartphone and therefore, it has to do its role of connecting me to the internet at high speed. That is the base layer. The layer above it in the pyramid is information. So, the interface should be readable, it should be up to date as far as content is concerned. In MVP, aesthetics come next. So, functionality then form. So, first you have to build the functionality, then you have to build form, design, aesthetics, ergonomics, how it fits with your hand. All of that is form, and it is higher order than functionality. And the highest order need, which is the equivalent of nirvana or self realization, self actualization in the Maslow hierarchy of needs, in an MVP is usability, is how easy it is to use it, how intuitive is it to use it, how childlike is it to use, how difficult is it to use makes it poor on usability. So, the hierarchy of needs from an MVP point of view is features that deliver functionality, features that deliver information, then the form, aesthetics, desirability, ergonomics, etc. And the topmost layer is the ability to do good user interface, is to do good user experience. And like I said in a lesson earlier, a user experience is not just with a digital product, but is with both a digital product, which is an app, and a physical product where you go to buy. So, these are the levels in an MVP. This is just a humorous way of depicting the same thing. So, we say that to build a car, it is not that you build one wheel first and then you will make two wheels and then you will build the chassis and then the car will happen. No, that is not how the transportation industry moved. The transportation industry moved from walking to, we did not have a skateboard, but an equivalent like that, to a cycle and then a two-wheeler and then a car. So, that is how the MVP is built. But let me leave this thought behind with you, which is the next slide and the last slide of this deck, which is you cannot spend the entire time just building functionality to 100%, which is the wrong way to do the MVP. If you build only the functionality, you will keep building it and 100 people will come and launch before you. What you need to do is build the right amount of functionality, the right amount of information reliability, the right amount of aesthetics and the right amount of usability, and that is the right way of building the MVP. And as you get feedback and as you get inputs from consumers, that slice of green will keep increasing. But there is no point in building all functionality and waiting for somebody to come and buy you. That will not happen. You will need to build it like a slice or a wedge, and the size of that wedge will keep increasing with time. Yeah. This is an example of Atomberg, and credit to Atomberg for having shared this with us. Atomberg is a company that makes fans. I am sure most of you know them. Currently they are, I think, advertising on cricket, and maybe you have seen their ads. If you haven't, you should make sure you check them out. So they started with a core technical feature called BLDC. BLDC expands as brushless DC fans. They have energy efficiency of some 20-25%, right. And so they started with that being the customer value proposition, which is low energy consumption vis-a-vis your current fan today. If your current fan is using 100 units of power, this will use 75 units of power for a like to like usage, the number of minutes or hours staying the same. But to come back to the MVP, their first product launched was manually assembled. The remote, this was also amongst the first fans which gave you a remote control to switch the fan on or off. So in the MVP, you could only do on off from the remote. Today you can do everything, you can do speed control, all of that from the remote, but in MVP it only had a on off feature. The technical feature was BLDC. The fans were manually assembled. It was not an automated assembly, because the number of fans that were being sold, and they did not even know how many would be sold, it was better to do manual assembly than to take an automated assembly line and produce thousands of fans and be left with product which has not been sold. So the MVP was a single model, single color, with the technical attribute or feature of BLDC motor, manual assembly, and the remote on that fan did only the on off feature. Today the assembly is fully automated and the remote is full function. The core technology still stays the same, which is the brushless DC motor. They now have a variety of designs which can be bought for not just colors, the shape of fin, the wattage of different fans. So there you can see there are these 3 or 4 generations which are about the motor, but what has changed is automation in their assembly. What has changed is the functionality or the ergonomics or the usefulness of the remote and the variety of designs that they have. So this is an example of starting with an MVP and then building with feedback from customers and adding attributes and features and adding dimensions that customers want, saving cost, but launching with an MVP. So if I had to summarize this lesson, it was about MVP, the minimum viable product, being the most valuable person in the sports analogy as far as a startup is concerned. So you need your minimum viable product. It's a key milestone. You should not attempt to give all features together and keep building. As a startup founder, you will not have that kind of resource. You will certainly not have the luxury of time. You should build your MVP by focusing on what is minimum required along functionality, information, user interface and aesthetics, rather than building only functionality at one time. You should be iteratively quick to build features as you get inputs back from your customers. So happy MVPing to you. Thank you for listening to this lesson.